Join me, Jonesy, for interviews, recaps and much more. So tune in, unwind and get your sporting fix. This is the 29th episode of the Sporting Fix, and it's genuinely just a recap of the Grand Final we witnessed last week. It is something that was quite entertaining, yet a boring game to look at, but it was extremely satisfying if you're a Brisbane Lions supporter. It started off with a Katy Perry performance, and we analysed the Kiss controversy last year, and I'll back it up again saying that Katy Perry was lip-syncing. It's as simple as that. You can't be moving and be as physically active as she was and yet keep your breath and sing as well as she supposedly did. So she was lip-syncing. It's take it to the bank. There's no controversy or argument against that. Was it a good performance? It was okay. It was nothing special. I mean, she got paid $5 million to sing 5 songs. It's I mean, seriously, it's just another day at the office for Perry. But it was a decent performance. She was in this futuristic car, which I didn't know what on earth was going on, hacking up the MCG turf just to sing some Raw songs. Anyway, she got out the road, and then it was the actual grand final. So her performance was okay, nothing special. People were, comparing it to Meatloaf, which is probably a stretch. Obviously Meatloaf is dead now, but his performance you wouldn't want to see again. So Katy Perry, decent performance, nothing special, nothing too bad. I mean, the crowd didn't really get involved. Her songs were okay. She was fine. It was clearly lip sunk, so that's game over. It's not a lot to analyse because every man and his dog knows that she was lip syncing. But we'll go to the grand final. And it was 120-60. It was a blowout. It was 10 goals the difference in favour of the Lions. And I did not see this coming. I thought it was going to be a close game. I thought Sydney were going to get on top because, as a general rule, when you don't have your main ruckman, you've got issues. But it just shows the sheer resilience and the fight that Fagan and his Lions have. I don't know what he does, Chris Fagan, but it seems to work. And it seems to work week in, week out. And he is a very, very good coach. He's 63. He's the oldest coach ever to win a premiership and the first coach in VFL AFL history to win a premiership without playing a game at the top level. So clearly his mind and his knowledge around the game is nothing short of extraordinary. But the thing that I loved most was the fact that after last year's loss against Collingwood, he put in a time capsule and he went to every single player involved with the team and he said, write something down that you will take into next year that will help us win a premiership. So they uncapsuled the time capsule and they saw, the messages that they wrote to themselves, and it was a beautiful touch. And the fact that it's gotten them to be a premiership team 365 days later is something special. Sydney, on the other hand, I would not be surprised if there are a few bodies jumping off the Harbour Bridge because they've lost a final in 2014. They've lost a final in 2016, 2022, and now 2024. They've lost 4 in a row, and they're not close games. They're decent margins. 60 points. It was about 81 points in 2022. They lost to the Dogs convincingly, about 15 to 20 points. I forgot what it was, but it was not a close game. Sydney were by far the best team in the competition, home and away season, take it to the bank. They were the best team of 2024. But you can't be the best without performing on the big stage. There is an issue. There is a clear issue with Sydney and playing grand finals. There's a clear issue. Whether they were playing it too safe, as Matthew Lord said a few days ago. I don't know what they were doing, but it seemed to do whatever happened, it was against Sydney's favour. Brisbane, on the other hand, what did they do right? They did a lot of things right. Their pressure on the ball, their pace, the maturity that they had, their efficiency, the leaders, the roles that were played to perfection, the possession. I mean, firstly, the pressure. Sydney got the pill, they got absolutely mauled within a minute. Within a second of getting the pill, they got absolutely decapitated. And it was a good... it's good from Brisbane. You want that in every week. And a grand final, you're always going to be under the pump. Brisbane took it to a new level. the pace. What they were able to do was they were able to pump it forward and also slow the game down. Sydney, like, as we know, all season they've been going fast down the corridor. Brisbane shut that down, and they did it perfectly. Brisbane put pace on the ball, and they also took pace off the ball, and they controlled the game for 4 quarters. The game was over at halftime. In 2022, the game was over at halftime. So there's an issue with Sydney and finals. But the fact, Brisbane were always going to be a team that could come out of the blocks early and tear the game to shreds within 2 quarters, and it's what they did. They're leaders. I mean, your Zorkos, your Zorkos, your McCluggage, your Lockie Neal, he had 35 touches. What you want in a team are your leaders to stand up, and you wouldn't want them to stand up at a bigger stage than the grand final. Everything Chris Fagan wanted, Brisbane did. Their efficiency, they had 81% disposal efficiency. Sydney had 70%. That is a big, vast difference. The goal efficiency, they had 18 goals from 51 inside 50s. Sydney had 9 goals from 49. I mean, 35% efficiency for Brisbane and 18 goal efficiency for Sydney. It's a big difference. The maturity. That's all I got to say. The maturity that they had. The decisions made on field to slow the game down or to pump it forward, they did it absolutely perfectly because you've got the experience of Zorko, of Dunkley, of Neal, of McCluggage. They've struck lightning in a bottle. Brisbane Lions to finish 5th and to win the premiership. I mean, the Dogs did it in 2016. They finished 7th, but 5th is still a very good effort because you've got to play every week. You finish top 4, you win the qualifying final, you get a week off. Brisbane are playing every week. The elimination, the semi, the prelim, and then to come out in grand final day and blow Sydney away was very extraordinary. The roles that were assigned and the roles that were played, I mean, Chris Fagan could relax the whole day knowing that his taggers did the job on Goulden, Heaney, and Warner. Warner had 21 touches. He averages 24. Goulden had 24 touches. He averages 27. Heaney was subbed out, but he had 14 touches. 14 touches. That's what a forward gets. Heaney is a genuine midfielder. You pin those 3 down, it's always going to be an issue for Sydney. If you pin those 3 down, you lose the game if you're a Sydney supporter. It's just so incredibly tricky to pin those 3 down. But the fact that Brisbane did it, it was genuinely unbelievable. Genuinely unbelievable how they kept Heaney to 14 touches, Gordon to 24, and Warner to 21. They are low numbers for the quality class of those 3 players. Brizzy had everything going their way. I mean, they had more possession. They had 80 more touches. They had more inside 50s. They had more centre clearances. They had just had more contested, more uncontested possessions. They had more turnovers, more intercepts. Everything was going their way. Their marks inside 50, they had 22. Sydney only had 9. 9 marks inside 50. That would bank you 9 shots on goal. That is not enough to win a game of footy. We said before the game, the preview of the grand final, Sydney averaged about 97 points. They only scored 60 because of the back of Lions' pressure and their pace and their maturity and their efficiency and their leaders and the roles that they played. It was satisfying to watch as a Brisbane supporter. If you're a Brisbane supporter, you sit back and you say, wow, what a team. Sydney could not go with them. They could not go with them. And, they rubbed salt into the wounds with John Longmire and his press conference. I thought that was rather rude or disrespectful. He had to sit through his press conference with next door the Lions singing their song. And it's just it's not Longmire's fault. It's not the Brisbane Lions' fault. It's the AFL's fault because their organisation was clearly not on point. And you could see Longmire, I thought he was going to burst into tears, the poor bloke, to lose 4 grand finals in a row, and having to sit through the sheer joy that Brisbane had. And you're contrasting to Longmire, who did not want to be there, and he clearly did not want to experience that. I mean, a press conference after a grand final, after a losing grand final, is so tough. And then to have next door Brisbane singing their song, it's always going to be tough to get through. And he handled it really well. He was very patient. He should not have had to go through that. Will Ashcroft, a Norm Smith medalist, 30-odd touches and a goal. He was outstanding as a 20-year-old, youngest to ever win the medal. Lachie Neale obviously had 35 touches, but he didn't get on the scoreboard, which probably was the main factor to contribute. But he got the Gary Ayres medal, the best player in the final series, and it's very well deserved because he is a gun player. Kyle Oman, I thought, was in contention for the Norm Smith medal. He had a few goals, 4 goals, I should say. And he was just electric. I mean, whenever he got near the pillar, whenever he had the Sharon in his hands, he was always going to score or use it wisely. Callum Archie had 4 goals, 1. He could have had a bag of 5. Joe Danaher on the other side, he had 2 goals, 4. He could have had a bag and a day out on grand final. If you kick 6 goals in a granny, you could be pretty comfortably locking in that Norm Smith medal. But he only scored 2 goals and he had 4 points. But he was a very good player. Very good. He had 15 kicks. He had 8 marks. He was around the ground pretty much the whole day. He was helping out defence and then coming up forward and scoring, but he could have been a bit more accurate and locked in a nice Norm Smith medal. But that's something to behold. And what I really liked was Oscar McInerney's support. I mean, he was there the whole year. Brilliant ruckman, obviously. He's the backbone of the midfield for Brisbane at the Big O, and he got replaced with the Big D. Darcy Fort, the Big D, came in and replaced the Big O, and he did well. He did do well. He had 19 hit-outs and only scored a point, but he did well because they're big shoes to fill with Oscar McInerney. And Darcy Fort did really well. But I loved the sheer joy on the face of Oscar McInerney because it's so tough to play all year and then miss the biggest game of the season. And the fact that he did that and he still showed up and he still supported his mate and his whole team, he was just ecstatic. So it was a nice touch there as well. So that's pretty much the wrap-up of the grand final. And it was a blowout at the end of the day. Sydney came in favourites. The game was over at quarter time, almost half time for sure, and they've got issues to fill. And Longmire takes him to another grand final, can't get the job done. It's an issue that needs to be addressed in the Sydney's camp. I mean, Longmire, I love the horse. I'm a horse man. I love John Longmire. But there's clearly issues need to be addressed when you talk about the grand final and Sydney being a part of it. Whether they're playing it too safe or whether they are just not fit for the big stage, it's an issue that has to be, addressed. That is the grand final ticked off, and it was a very, very interesting grand final filled with joy and obviously heartbreak is what happens with every grand final, but that is that. Brisbane win by 60 points, a 10-goal thrashing in Melbourne in front of 100,013 people. I'll tick it off one more time. It was the pressure, the pace, the maturity, the efficiency and the leaders and the roles that they played to get the job done by 60 points. Welcome. Thank you very much. That's season 2024 of the AFL, Australian Football League. If for those who do not know, I'm just rambling on right now because it's only 14 minutes. But that is the job done. That is the season done. It's Brisbane, obviously, who wins. Sydney, who comes second. And the wooden spooners to Richmond. For those who don't know, I'll be back in 2025 for the AFL season. I don't know why you're laughing, Tommy, in the background. But I will be here for for cricket over the summer. India coming down for 5 test matches, the ODIs, the T20s. The Big Bash, I'll be here for the season of cricket. And if you are an avid AFL supporter, I'll be back in March and we'll be back actually over the summer talking about trades. So the footy won't be gone. The games will be. The trade talk won't be. I'll be back next year for the AFL 2025 season, where I'll be dissecting the games like I did this year and last year. Thank you, everyone. You'll see me next time where we talk about cricket and the AFL. Tommy, please. Shush. Thank you, everyone. I'll see you next time on The Sporting Fix.